Welcome everybody, I'm Jolene Moon. This is my Science is Magic YouTube channel where I talk about the science and maths that fascinates me. This video is going to be the first in my GCSE Minecraft and Chill revision series where we're just going to casually chat about the stuff that you need to know for your maths, physics and chemistry exams while I entertain myself and maybe you with some Minecraft shenanigans. So grab a cup of tea, play a game, doodle, do whatever you've got to do and maybe absorb some revision advice at the same time. I'm going to be uploading these every Sunday at 6 o'clock, all three videos, one maths, one physics, one chemistry, each 20 to 30 minutes long. And for my debut in this series, they're going to have a theme, and that's FAQs that I get as a tutor, and some revision tips and study strategies, particularly for this period between January and May, leading up to the summer exams. You might be thinking, well, it's January, I've got ages, what are you talking about? Exam strategy. Well, you might not be watching this in January, but if you are, now is the best time to be prepping for the summer. And if you are watching this closer to the time, don't worry, you've still got time to implement these tips and strategies. So, first of all, what am I doing here? I am preparing for the Ender Dragon fight. While I talk at you about some maths, and that might not be the most sensible thing in the world. We'll see how it goes. Lagging a bit and don't know where anything is. Well, that's a great start. Okay. So, first question we have is, well, it's more of a statement, and that's that people will always tell me that they can't do maths. Particularly girls have this attitude, of course, where they're told by society that they can't do maths or that they're not as good as it as the boys are or whatever. And what I have to say to that is that words are spells, and the things that we say, the things that we believe about ourselves, the more we speak them, we make them true. We manifest things that we say, especially if we're talking about things that we believe about ourselves, especially if we're repeating that over and over again, and it will eventually become true. Self-fulfilling prophecy. So exercise caution around the things that you're telling yourself, and especially if it's something that comes up again and again for you, be kinder to yourself. And if you're more confident and more compassionate with yourself, it allows your neural pathways to connect better, and that's the crux of it, really. I'm going to need some glass to make some more end crystals and some blaze powder. God knows where that is. No idea where I'm going to find it. So when I talk about neural pathways connecting, I talk about this kind of thing all the time. I talk about where our knowledge is like solid ground, and then the neural pathways, our neurons physically connecting, are like bridges that we need to build plank by plank between these plateaus of solid ground. So I want you to think about that, and think about building the bridges being like the repetition, the practice, the understanding, the application that you need to get you from one piece of knowledge to the other. So most often when people say they can't do maths, what they actually mean is that they're missing some bridges, or they're missing some platforms that will be connected by bridges, and that might be because teachers went too fast, or they just happened to miss a lesson, or something unexpected or unavoidable happened. I don't know, life happens. So what I would say to that is, don't worry, because you can always build more bridges. It's just about repetition, it's about associations, and adding bits of knowledge onto your map of connected platforms. And the more bridges you have between platforms, the more associations you have between bits of knowledge, the more likely you'll be to actually remember things and apply new bits of knowledge in new situations. And that's going to come through practice, and you'll see how important that is in a bit. I think I'm ready. I've got some arrows. Yeah, I'm sure I'll be fine. What's the worst that can happen? I could lose everything, so I'm just going to pop it all in here, or most of it anyway. All right, on to the next question, which is, when will I ever use any of this in real life? This question equally annoys me, but also I actually love talking about it. I love talking about where I get to use maths in my real life, which, um, not necessarily relevant to everybody else. So I think that what the most useful thing about maths, which is underemphasized in classrooms, and that's why it annoys me, is that it teaches you logic and lateral thinking skills, and no other subject at school really gives you the opportunity to do that. Apart from, it's certainly useful in other subjects like history, and if you have a really good English teacher, and sometimes in science, obviously you need to use problem solving skills in all your subjects, but especially science, but you don't necessarily get to apply or practice lateral thinking skills. The emphasis is more on knowledge accumulation in other subjects, and understanding the concepts relevant to each subject rather than developing your lateral thinking skills. So maths is really the opportunity to focus on that. And, like I said, with building bridges and building association of bits of knowledge, it's like a toolkit for you, and how you apply that and where you apply that in your life depends on what you end up doing and where you want to go with that. Obviously, I'm a scientist, so I use maths and I use lateral thinking all the time, lots of different topics, but the main thing that people will often talk about and use in their life is filing taxes, financial things, returns on investments, budget management, things you can do for yourself that's empowering and useful in that regard. But you can also apply maths in fun areas of life, in games, in puzzles, and in art. And I won't talk too much about that. And if you're an artist, you already know how valuable it is to understand geometry, to have a mechanical understanding of shape in your crafts and in your art. And there are other YouTubers that do a much better job than I could of really giving you some beautiful content to illustrate that concept. But I'm just talking about, broadly speaking, the benefits of developing these kinds of skills, and seeing where maths is applicable in life. But you don't have to be able to see where maths is applied in real life, and you don't have to love maths, and you don't have to use it in order to be good at it. It just helps. What I would rather you focus on is just seeing it as a tool in your toolbox that is empowering you to become a well-rounded human being. And I think that's worth knowing and worth doing. All right, we'll just wait for this potion to finish brewing, and I think that's enough of me chit-chatting about those random topics. So let's move on to my exam advice. And I've already said it twice today. I'm going to say it again. Repetition. Best tool in your toolbox is to practice and repeat things, and break things into steps. Especially with maths questions, it's so straightforward to break down, especially with a tutor or teacher's help, every single question that you're going to get in a maths exam into a set of repeatable steps that you can follow no matter what the numbers are in the question. And if you can get to a point where you're understanding a topic well enough to be able to do that, to be able to break it down into a set of steps, you're well on your way to becoming an excellent mathematician, and gaining a deeper understanding of the topics. So if you've got a question wrong, do them again until you get it right. Do it until you can see the steps that you need to follow, and study your mistakes. It's the best thing I ever did to improve my maths grades. It's the key to improving your skills, is to understand your mistakes. That's why people talk about making mistakes is so important. You have to learn from them. They show you where you're going the wrong way, or where you're thinking about something not quite right, that's not getting you to the right answer, and that's essential for improvement. Okay, the next tip I would give is little and often is better than big study sessions. Don't cluster all your revision onto a Friday night or a Sunday night, or the night before you've got a bit of homework due. If you can, get into the habit of 5, 10, 15 minutes of building up. Especially start that now, from where we are now until April. If you're building up how many minutes a day or how many minutes every other day of maths you're doing, you're going to build up your practice, you're going to build your discipline, you're going to build strength in your subjects, and you'll start to get more familiar with questions and exam questions, and that's what we want. If you can recognize exam questions right away, and that actually brings me to my next point, which is the specification. Get to grips with the specification. Know what you're going to be asked in the exam. Know how to recognize which question is from which topic. And, it can be the difference between someone who will succeed in an exam or not. is knowing the language of the exam. The specification is highly specific, the mark scheme is highly specific, and the language that they use in exam questions is highly specific. And if you don't understand it, they're much more likely to catch you out. And I think that's so important. Just going to get I think I've got everything I need, and I am about to summon a dragon in my survival world that I've been in for a couple of years now. This is the third time on this, or is it the fourth time that I've summoned the dragon again for some end gateways. Anyway, the last point I have is about where I just was talking about the language in an exam. If you've ever had that experience where you're working on something in class and you're like, oh, this is fine, all the questions in the textbook are easy, this is easy mode, I've got this, and then suddenly you get into an exam scenario or a past paper or a mock and you don't know what's going on, and it seems like the question is literally in a foreign language. That's the case of you haven't studied the exam language, and if you're not going into the exam anticipating how they're going to be written and being familiar with the topic and knowing how to recognize a topic and the words that they use to describe it and how they connect topic to topic, that's vital for that's the difference between, the average grades versus a top grade. So that's my advice for strategy going into an exam. Beyond that, I would say, let's just summon this dragon here and I'll carry on talking. All right. Beyond that, I would say my general advice is, or my tips, is that you want to focus on the core material in the syllabus. So again, this comes back to the specification. Fractions first. Everybody hates fractions. You've got to know how to add, subtract, multiply, divide fractions. You've got to know how to convert fractions and decimals, and everyone hates it. But if you understand fractions, you're well on your way to becoming a brilliant GCSE mathematician. And the second thing is algebra. You've got to know how to set things out algebraically, to structure your thoughts. This is where the logic and the lateral thinking comes in. Understanding how powers and roots work, how that connects to fractions, setting out problems in an equation form, rearranging formulae, and then solving complicated equations, and understanding how the laws of indices ties into all of that. I'm going to get to the top of this pillar and then stay there, I think, for a second. So powers and roots are useful for understanding so much of the GCSE. I really can't emphasize that enough. So if you haven't really taken the time to understand them, I highly recommend you spend some time, a revision session doing that. Let me know if you want me to talk about them. I will quite happily do that. Hopefully that one's not too far away. Awesome. Okay. Right, and the last thing is quadratic equations. So many of the questions in a GCSE exam are based around quadratic equations, and it's kind of annoying, actually, because it is only one of the topics, but it's so heavily emphasized in the GCSE. And I'm not sure why, because obviously it is quite an applicable topic, but it's not. I'd say geometry or algebra are more important, but I guess quadratic equations are the way that they sort of the vehicle that they use to get you to practice your algebra and your understanding of trig and geometry and stuff. Right, okay, and I don't know how many more pillars I've got left to do. But solving quadratic equations using the formula, using completing the square, quadratic inequalities, graphs, linear graphs, and quadratic graphs, and how trigonometry ties into that, I would say is trigonometry is a big one. It confuses people. Why is it used in maths? Where is it used? Why is it useful? All of that. Where does it come from? Sorry, the dragon just flung me off the pillar. That's so rude. Now, The harder topics, when you've covered the core topics, you've covered your basics, we get into the topics that are used in the chunkier questions, right? The bigger marks. So that's things like geometry, circle geometry, volume, perimeter, and area, more complicated algebra, and probability, statistics, by which I mean things like histograms, frequency, density charts, data, means, averages, all that kind of thing. And treating the situation with those bigger questions like it's a puzzle, and that can make you more interested in it, which can make you less stressed. It can make it easier and more enjoyable to answer the questions, especially when they're like 6 marks and there's a triangle and a circle and it's like find X and there's a million things you don't know and you don't know where to even begin answering. It can be intimidating, but to just sit down and think, okay, I'm just doing a puzzle book. I'm just going to sit down and have a go. And I know that probably sounds really unusual, but I do seriously recommend trying to shift the mindset like that, because it can help, really help take the stress out, which helps you remember things better and helps you stay calmer. And the last tip I have is that, like with a physical exercise, you wouldn't expect yourself to go from 0 to 100 right away. You wouldn't expect yourself to be able to do everything right away. You would have to start small and build up. So that's what I mean with the discipline and the routine between now and April. Start with the basics, start with the core materials, build it up to the harder stuff. You wouldn't expect yourself to keep trying at to run at your fastest speed or lift your top weights from the get-go. You would expect to build that strength or that flexibility or that speed, and that's more sustainable in the long term. And you also wouldn't pick running if running wasn't your thing, or yoga if you weren't very flexible and didn't want to work on that. You have to pick the exercise that's right for you, that's right for your body, and what is fun and what motivates you, because and that applies to everything, but especially with revision and practicing tough topics. You have to find a way to get into it that inspires and motivates you. Otherwise, you're going to find it so much harder to stop yourself from procrastinating, and it could be a whole mess. So right, actually killing the dragon now. About, what is this, like 17 minutes into the video, and talking about maths at the same time. It is quite a challenge, but I do have some more revision tips. So the more you involve play and the more you involve different strategies of revision, the more successful you're going to be. Remember what I said about bridges and associations, and the more different ways that you absorb a piece of information and the more fun and engaging it is for your brain, the more that there's challenge, novelty, and reward. Those are the 3 keys to building strong associations, strong positive associations with a subject, which is what will ensure your success in an exam. So listen to as many different explanations on a topic as possible, especially if it's one you're struggling with. Figure out how that topic is applied in real life. Have a Google, have a look on YouTube, ask your teacher, even if it's just the one teacher and you ask them to explain it in different ways. I need a strength potion. It didn't even apply. Okay. There might just be a key word or a key concept that you're just missing, a plank of that bridge that you're missing, and you just need your teacher to tell you something different, and that's the key to unlocking that particular topic for you and building that bridge. And that applies to all your subjects. So get different YouTube videos if you can, get different textbooks if you can, pick up different revision guides if you can. But even if not, and you've got a teacher or a tutor, you can ask, can you explain that to me in a different way? Right, let's get out of the purple breath. Okay, so where was I? Revision guides and revision textbooks. So you want to also make sure that your practice is diverse. So the explanations you're getting have to be diverse. The way that you're revising has to be diverse. Don't just read your notes and then do practice questions. Try different things. Try doing games. Try watching YouTube videos. Try explaining it to your friends. Work with your friends. Well, that was a mistake. I'm now stuck down here. I'm going to have to pearl out, aren't I? That feels like a mistake. There we go. Hope for the best. Best not land in the void. Okay, all good. Okay. He's going to get away before I manage to kill him now, isn't he? Sorry, where was I? Practice workbooks, practice sheets, practice questions. You want to try and diversify those as well. Don't just try the ones from your textbook and then past papers. You want to try there's so many free questions online. You want to try and target the way that you are either struggling with the material. Try and get questions that cater to that. You want to and so that's as many different ways as you can. You want to be practicing everything. Awesome. So recapping, you want to build your routine gradually, build a discipline, try as many different revision strategies as possible. Try doing it in the form of puzzles, try games, try YouTube videos, ask your teachers to explain it in a different way. And that's probably a good place to end the video there, isn't it? I really hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Consider giving me a like and a subscribe if you want to keep listening to me chat about things. They won't all be quite this chill. I'll go into more depth on specific topics. Check out physics and chemistry. If you're also doing science, we're doing another similar kind of chat about FAQs and revision. And of course, don't forget to be kind to yourself. Words are spells, so live your best magical life. I hope you have a great week. All right, yalla bye.